is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to discuss with you today as we have Hurricane Erin that is currently drifting out to sea. Still a powerful Category 2 hurricane, bringing some potential outer bands and outflow to New England. Also, we have three other areas of interest that we need to talk to you about today, as well as a potential Gulf Central American gyre setup down the road that the Climate Prediction Center has highlighted. So we have a lot to talk to you about today. So let's go ahead and dive right into it right here. So starting off with you right here, we have Erin. We're going to briefly go over the advisory, then we're going to get to the other three AOIs right now. But here's our public advisory for you at this current time. Maximum sustained winds are 100 miles per hour. Its current location is about 285 miles east of Cape Hatteras and 400 miles northwest of Bermuda. It's moving northeast at 18 miles per hour, so it has picked up in speed, and its minimum central pressure is 952 millibars right now. Bermuda is now under a tropical storm warning. We also have tropical storm warnings in effect for parts of North Carolina and Virginia, as well as the Delmarva Peninsula as well, so you're going to want to still watch out for those as well. Tropical storm force winds extend now outward 320 miles from the center, and hurricane force winds extend outward 105 miles from the center. So this is a very large hurricane that we are dealing with right here, and we will keep you updated on the latest. But here's the discussion that we can pull up for you right here. Here's the discussion that we have for you right here. We're just going to briefly go over this, and then we'll go ahead and get over to the other areas of interest after the cone. Erin remains a sprawling hurricane with its tropical storm force winds extending nearly 500 nautical miles across. In fact, comparing Erin with systems around the same intensity in similar locations over the past couple of decades initiates this at around the 90th percentile in size. Basically, the system is way larger than your average system that we deal with on a regular basis. The center of Erin passed just east of the buoy earlier this morning with a minimum pressure of 962 millibars and a maximum significant wave height of 45 feet. So there are massive waves being generated by the system right here, and you're definitely going to want to watch out for this for those in those tropical storm warnings. Increased southerly vertical shear, drier mid-level air, and cooler SSTs should cause Erin to gradually lose strength over the next several days. Extratropical transition is now expected to complete by early Saturday, with the system forecast to develop fronts after it crosses the north wall of the Gulf Stream. NHC follows these guidances in the short term, but leans towards the global model guidance during the predicted extratropical phase. So expected to get down to 90 miles per hour in the next 12 hours. Then it's expected to transition to an extratropical cyclone at hurricane strength, actually, as it continues to gradually weaken and head towards Europe. So that's the situation we're dealing with right there with the discussion. Looking at the graphics for you as well, here is the cone. Tropical storm warnings in effect for parts of Virginia and North Carolina, as well as the Delmarva Peninsula and in Bermuda as well. This cone right here doesn't really reflect just how wide these winds are right now, and we're going to have to pay attention to that as well. So we're going to have to keep a very close eye on what's going on as well. So yeah, that's quite the deal we are dealing with. This is heading towards Iceland, heading towards Ireland and the United Kingdom. So if you're tuning in from Europe, you're going to want to watch out for this system, and we'll keep you updated on that as it heads towards your way. But we're also watching three other areas of interest right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, NHC has been tagging area of interest, area of interest, area of interest, invest, invest, invest. So we're going to go ahead and dissect all of these for you right here, and let's go ahead and get started with Invest 90L. Near the Leeward Islands and the tropical Atlantic, an area of disorganized showers and thunderstorms associated with a tropical wave is located a few hundred miles east of the Leeward Islands. Environmental conditions appear conducive for further development of the system, and a tropical depression is likely to form this weekend while it moves near or to the north of the northern leewards right here. 50% chance in the next 48 hours, so that is really turned up since the last time we talked about this. And in the next 7 days, we are seeing a 70% chance of development. So we're now in that red zone right here that we talk about quite a bit here in the for the NHC and other meteorology fields right here. So we're going to want to watch out for that as well. Also, looking at Invest 99L, still has a 40% chance of formation right here. Showers and thunderstorms associated with a tropical wave located several hundred miles west-southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands have changed little in organization since earlier today. Environmental conditions appear marginally favorable for additional development over the next day or so, while the system moves generally westward at 10 to 15 miles per hour, which is a bit slower, and a short-lived tropical depression could form. In a few days, the environmental conditions are expected to become unfavorable for further development, 40% in the next 48 hours and 7 days, so we're going to want to watch out for that as well. And then you have this area of interest right here that the NHC tagged not too long ago. This already has a 30% chance of formation, and this just has such a little area that we're dealing with right here. But here we go. A small area of low pressure located about 1,200 miles southwest of the Azores is producing a few showers and thunderstorms. Upper level winds are only marginally conducive for development while the system moves slowly eastward over the next couple of days. 30% chance in the next 48 hours or 7 days. So a subtropical system is not out of the question right here, right on that tropical subtropical boundary right there for you, ladies and gentlemen. But that's not the only headline we have for you today, as this Climate Prediction Center has come out, and now we're looking at maybe more potential development happening closer to land, folks. Here is the Climate Prediction Center's latest outlook right here. This was updated a couple of days ago for you guys, but we're going to go ahead and present it right here. Throughout the week of August 22nd, 7th through September 2nd, we are looking at around a 20% chance of formation in the eastern main development region right here. We're going to see a more stable environment for a little while, which may calm down tropical development for at least a little bit, but as the MJO starts to kick back in early September, we have a much wider area of tropical development possible for parts of the MDR, pretty much from the Cabo Verdes all the way to the Leeward Islands over here. But then this is the big story we're paying attention to right here. We are looking at potentially an area of development greater than 20% chance across much of the Western Caribbean and in the Southern Gulf region right here. Likely influence from the Central American gyre. The MJO really picks up the gyre systems over there, and that is something you're going to want to watch because gyre systems, for those of you who do not know, are notoriously hard to predict. They can intensify at an extremely explosive rate, as we've seen with Helene, we saw with Milton, we saw with Michael, we saw with a lot of other areas as well. So that's something you're going to want to watch out for as well. But now that they're highlighting that as a risk, we have to pay attention to it because now this poses a greater threat to land for you, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't before where maybe it was like a 20% over Florida and maybe generally in subtropical regions. This is now encompassing much of Central America, much of Mexico, and this does put the Gulf Coast potentially in the line of fire. So we're going to want to really pay attention to this right here because of its proximity and because of the conditions that are over there, to be honest, which we will get to a little bit later. But let's go ahead now and show you some satellite imagery, and then we'll get to the models. Starting off with satellite imagery, we'll go ahead and make our rounds. Here is Hurricane Erin for you guys. Currently off the coast of the Delmarva Peninsula right here, heading towards, in generally latitude speak, heading towards New Jersey, actually, potentially bringing some pretty heavy surf over there as well. Not as impressive as it was the last couple of days, I would say. It is going to start transitioning to an extratropical cyclone if it hasn't already. But my goodness, look at the size of the system right here. For you guys right here. I can't even encompass the entire region. Let's go ahead and see if we can get the northwestern Atlantic just to cover this. Yes, we can, but look at this. The outer bands are just off the coast of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut right here. Same thing with Long Island as well. The outflow is definitely picking up on that as well. But what I do find interesting is a lot of this outflow is getting caught into the jet right here as the system moves into stronger and stronger wind shear. So we're going to want to pay attention to that and see how this system kind of reacts to that. But by and large, what you're looking at is a lot of the wind shear that may have kind of been put into parts of the tropics right here is going to be caught into this jet, and it's going to mainly blunt some of the stronger wind shear from entering the tropics for the next little while. So we'll have to pay attention to it. Yes, there is some entering parts of the Bahamas and in parts of the Caribbean as well. That's only going to be temporary, likely for a few days, as the system weakens and dissipates and becomes an extratropical cyclone. So we'll have to pay attention to that for you guys. But then making our rounds down to Invest 90L, which is off the coast of the Lesser Antilles right here. 90L has shown more signs of organization over the last little while. Matter of fact, I want to go ahead and go back to 24 hours just to show you what we are potentially seeing right here. Generally, more popcorn and convection is what we saw for parts of the region right here. It was generally just going up and then flaring down and all of that stuff. That's generally what we've noticed, at least for the last little while right here. But ultimately, this system is organizing. You have a pretty defined low-level circulation with this as well, and the system is moving into a better environment for development, so we're going to want to pay attention to it. The only concern I may have is the potential shear from Hurricane Erin, especially as it moves further to the east, but as a lot of that shear is getting blunted by the jet, I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned with the development process, but if you are in the Lesser Antilles, I would still pay very close attention to this, especially with the impacts that this could be generating. This system already has pretty good outflow with it as well, and we can go ahead and zoom out for you guys and head towards the central Atlantic just to show you this. We have pretty good outflow with this system right here, so we're going to want to pay attention to it, and it's generally an indication of how quickly the system could organize and strengthen. And speaking of which, we do have our other area of interest over here. I believe this is the system right here. It's this Invest right here, Invest 99L, really showing signs of organization right here, especially over the last little while. But ultimately, it's kind of it's not really necessarily degraded just yet. It still has some time to get its act together in the next couple of days, and we could see a short-lived depression or storm. The main problem would be the wind shear, in my opinion, generally, just because of what's Erin may be producing, and as well as this area of interest with the outflow that's starting to kick up. So we'll have to watch out for that. But I would not rule out a tropical depression or storm with this one, so we'll have to keep you updated on that. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and go to another area right here. We're going to go ahead and go towards the Atlantic wide, because we really don't have a close-up to this one, but it's this area of interest right here that was tagged this morning by the National Hurricane Center. Really not showing that much signs of organization right here. Likely kind of dealing with diurnal minimum right after DMAX. We'll have to see what the convection does tonight once the sun goes down, but by and large, this does still pose a chance due to warmer waters that far up in the subtropics. We have decent moisture as well. The shear is the main concern, mainly because of Erin over here, but we'll have to pay attention to that going forward. So that's kind of your situation with the satellite imagery. Let's go ahead now and talk to you about the models. Let's go ahead and get started. We have the European for you guys pulled up right here. We're only going to be showing operational runs for this, not quite the hurricane models just yet, especially for 99 and 90L over here, primarily because those haven't developed yet. I'm not really putting too much stock into them, and we have more things that we need to get to today. So here's what we have for the European. Erin continues to move offshore. It kind of weakens, becomes an extratropical cyclone, moves through parts of the subtropical Atlantic right here. Then you have this system start to spin up over here according to the Euro. It remains a relatively weak system, but it still closed itself off. You could definitely see a tropical storm out of this, in my opinion, but then it's going to be moving into into worse conditions overall, and then it's going to dissipate and get merged in by this low pressure system. So that's something to watch. The European isn't taking too much stock in 99L, although it does have it potentially developing a little bit early on, but it's not going to really last for longer than about 2 to 3 days, so that's something to watch as well. And the European doesn't even have this area of interest in the Central Atlantic tag just yet on its model, so we'll have to pay attention to that. Maybe that could be a sleeper developer as the season unfolds, but we'll have to pay attention to that going forward. Let's go ahead now and go to the GFS. Here's your GFS model, having Erin move off to sea. The GFS really likes this system, potentially getting up to hurricane strength in this near the subtropics, especially with that warm water. It is plausible. My main issue would be the wind shear if it gets caught into that, but we'll have to keep a very close eye on that. We're looking at a 960s millibar system with the GFS. That does seem a bit outlandish in my opinion, but we'll have to watch out for that. Matter of fact, I want to go ahead and look at 99. Actually, no, not 90L. Okay, the hurricane runs do actually have a pretty high ceiling with this Category 1 to Category 2 intensity, so we'll have to watch out for that. Generally, I would mainly focus on nowcasting this system, in my opinion, at this current point, until we get more data and until we get the system actually developing. Then we can put more stock in the hurricane models, but it still has a pretty impressive ceiling compared to what we've seen previously. So we'll have to watch out for that as well. In terms of what's going on in this part of the Atlantic in the MDR, generally next 3 days you could see something pop up, but then start to weaken due to shear, and we'll have to pay attention to that as well. But down the road, I know the GFS earlier did show something potentially developing in the Central American gyre, and I was like, okay, let's wait a second and see how this pans out going forward. And the GFS doesn't have really that much happening at this current point compared to what we saw yesterday, but considering the Climate Prediction Center has tagged this as a potential gyre setup, we are definitely going to want to watch that, and that's definitely going to be an area that's going to be put on notice, and we'll talk more about that with the conditions that we're seeing. We'll go ahead next and show you the Canadian run, and then we'll get to the conditions. Here's the Canadian. Erin moves off right here, having the system over here in the subtropics, starting to really organize, get up to strong tropical storm strength, and then start to potentially weaken and merge with that frontal boundary, and that's the last we'll hear of that. And then we'll have this area of interest potentially developing in the main development region. Could do that, and then it starts to weaken and dissipate as it moves into better conditions. But curiously, the Canadian does like something about this, potentially heading further to the west right here. I don't think it has it developing, but that is a little bit of a tidbit that we're going to want to watch right there, especially as we see more tropical waves come off the coast of Africa down the road. So that's kind of your situation that we have right there. There may not be potentially activity for a little while after Erin because there will be a more stable air. But as we get into early September, based on what the CPC is going for, we're going to be starting up again. And why are we going to be starting up again? Because the MGO is going to get more active, and we're going to have plenty of great conditions for the rest of the season. Let's go ahead and start with the water temperatures for you guys. Water temperatures are absolutely crazy across much of the tropics right here. Regardless of the cold wake that Erin's leaving behind right here, this is easily going to recover by the time we get towards another period of big activity again. And I want to hone in a little bit on the Western Atlantic, because this is what the CPC has designated as an area of interest right here. This area of over 29 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit waters pretty much consistently across the board. A lot of areas of 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and then potentially into the upper 80s Fahrenheit, around 31 degrees Celsius in the Gulf right here. That is something you are absolutely going to want to watch if you are around that area of interest by the Climate Prediction Center. And the reason I'm putting more stock into that is because if the CPC typically tags something, that's pretty much an area to watch. And then once the NHC tags it, once it gets to 7 days out, you go, okay, this is pretty serious. You're going to want to watch this. So that's why I'm kind of raising the alarms now, because if the Climate Prediction Center tags this, it's generally the first indication. And then from here on out, after that, once more modeling comes in and once we get a better idea of the environment, that's when the NHC will get started and tag that. So we'll have to watch that as well. Also paying attention to the ocean heat content. OHC continues to be very concerning across much of the Atlantic. Let's go ahead and go to the 21st just to give you an idea of what's happening. Here's what we have with the OHC. OHC across parts of the Western Atlantic right here, well over 100. Well over 125, well over 150 in a lot of areas. That is an area that has been untapped since last year. It's been untapped this entire season so far. So anything that gets into that those waters with good shear and plenty of moisture will absolutely take off. And we're going to want to watch that as well. We all saw what happened with Erin, how it kind of went from a 75-mile-per-hour hurricane to a Category 5 in 24 hours. We all saw that, and those were not in the best possible conditions for OHC and water temperature. And those areas were generally around like 75 to 100 OHC. This is double that in this part of the Atlantic right here. So you're definitely going to want to watch this going into early September. As for the rest of the Atlantic and the MDR, yeah, there's no slowing down anytime soon. You're going to have pretty good OHC, especially on the western half of the MDR over here, and that's something you're going to want to watch, especially as we see more and more of these tropical waves and more of this activity that's going to be popping up here and there, and we're going to definitely need to watch that as well. We're going to talk more about the wind shear, and we're going to talk more about the dry air aspect of it in tomorrow's video, because we'll have more time to discuss that. We had a lot of crazy shenanigans happen today, but what I'm saying to you right now is if you're in Central America, if you're in Mexico, if you're along the Gulf Coast of the United States, now is the time to prepare if you haven't already. If the CPC is tagging something anywhere where a gyre system could develop, that's usually a bad sign. And those are factors that we're going to have to watch, and we will keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you want to help out, hang out, or ask us any questions, feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. We'd really be happy if you guys came on. The link to that will be in the end screen, and it's a great community. We will be happy to include you in what we're doing. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.